Anyway, I asked the innkeeper, the owner, I asked, well, what's this strange painting? Wouldn't expect that in a pub. And he said, well, there was this crazy painter here in the 60s, 70s who came to Isla, and he started painting in pubs. And even stranger, the man never asked for money, but for a place to stay. Just a bed to rest his head, just food and drink, and especially the drink was very important for him, like Guinness ale and very much whiskey, because they produce whiskey on the island, of course. So the guy stayed here and made paintings, and the next morning when I went to the breakfast room, there was another painting, again by the same guy. And the funny thing is that the owner of the hotel told me that you could see the guy in the paintings as well. Every painting he did, he depicted himself as well, so you could see how he looked like at that time. And all the people in the paintings he painted were people of the island, which was very special as well. So I thought, that's interesting. And I said, well, it's a pity I have to leave tomorrow. And this story of this guy who called himself Sean O'Leary stayed with me when I came back to Holland. And I started to find out a little bit more about this guy on Google, Googling the name, Googling the west coast of Scotland, Googling Isla, Googling newspapers, magazines, and so on, exhibition centers, galleries, and so on. And I couldn't find a thing. But I thought, there's a story in that. A guy coming to an island, calls himself Sean O'Leary, makes paintings, doesn't own a thing except for his suitcase and his painting stuff. That's interesting. I would like to live like that, maybe as well, right? So, quite a romantic idea. So, I thought, there's a story in that. I want to know more about it. So I called the owner of the inn and said, listen, this Sean O'Leary, are there more people on the island who can tell me a little bit about him? And if so, tell me, and I'll come back and I'll stay at your hotel for 2 full weeks. And I want to interview people. And in between 24 hours, he wrote back, yes, I can bring you in contact with some people. And so I got back to the island. And I got a list from a guy from the island, from the municipality, for people I could interview. And I called the people and said, well, they were surprised. The guy wants to know something about Sean O'Leary. It's such a long time ago, because the guy, he had died in the late 80s. And I was there at about 2004, 2005. So I started to interview people and asking stories about this guy. And I got stories, of course, back about Sean O'Leary. But while they were telling the stories about Sean O'Leary, after 10 minutes, 15 minutes, they started to tell stories about themselves as well. And about their relationship with people on the island as well, which was interesting. Yes, like when I interviewed the older ladies who had known Sean when they were younger. You could hear, because he was a beautiful man, red beard, tall guy, wearing a kilt, things like that. And when I interviewed them, you could feel and hear that they were jealous of other women who had talked to him at that time. So again, I got other names of people, so I have to interview her as well. So through let's say some other visits to Isla and visits to other parts of Scotland and even England, I found even some family of his in the end. And anyway, while I was busy on the island looking for stories, there was this funny thing that happened in between when I came to a small village and to a small shop in that village. And I got into the shop and I bought a cap and I went to the cashier to pay for the cap. And there was this very small lady behind the cashier. And she looked up to me, very wisely, looking up to me. Ah, you must be Peter, the guy who's going to write a book about Sean. I said, yes, that's me. So you see that without me telling people, just interviewing people, the people themselves were telling them, there's a guy who's going to do something, and he's looking like this and that, and he's going to write a book about Sean. So by this, the community woke up in a way. And they also woke up in realizing that Sean O'Leary wasn't an important person. Still, he was, when he lived on the island, he was an important person. Because in the 70s, tourists came over. to see this crazy painter, because there had been articles in newspapers in the 70s about this crazy painter on Isla. But now he was, in a way, forgotten. The tourists didn't come for him anymore. But now the people woke up, and even young people started to become interested in this story of Sean. And they came to me, yes, I've heard from my uncle this, and so on. So it started to live on even people who had never met him had stories about Sean. And so what happened was that I was also looking on the neighboring island, the Isle of Jura, where he had come as well. And he had made a painting, of course, there as well, at a pub. And when I was walking the island, I came to a mansion, a manor, big house. And there was a guy working in the garden, the gardener. And I walked up to the gardener and said, I just went to the Jura Hotel, where there's a painting of this guy called Sean O'Leary. Do you know about him? Have you ever heard of him? And this guy said, yes, I've heard of him. In fact, in this barn, where I have my gardening stuff, there is a painting of Sean O'Leary. So he led me to the barn, and there was this painting of a horse race by the sea, broken in 3 pieces between other stuff. I thought, that's interesting, so I made some photographs of that. And when I got back to Isla, I went to this accountant who had saved a big mural of Sean and put it in his barn, and I told him, look what I found on Jura. He said, that's interesting. We thought that it was lost forever, this painting. So that's good. Anyway, through the years, in a period of 2 years, let's say, things happened. There were plans to re-establish a hotel in Port Ellen, where this one big painting of Sean had been on a wall, the Isla Hotel. And just half a year ago, or 3/4 of a year ago, I heard from a friend on Isla that the hotel has been restored to its old glory, that the mural has been put back. And 3 days ago, when I prepared my little speech for the workshop, I was looking at the website of the Isla Hotel, and I saw in the dining room the painting of the horse race by the sea, which I thought, that's great. So they have really reinstalled Sean O'Leary, they have reinstalled the story. The community has become more cohesive and evolved, and it's also good for tourism, because I had published a book about my search of Sean, and I had given it to the island people, and they have distributed it. And what I've heard, I'm not sure, I have to go there and see if it's true, that the book about Sean is next to the painting, the big mural that they had reinstalled, and it's also in the Isla Museum, where people, when they come and see some work of Sean there, they can also look at the book and see the history of the man. So in that way, it works both ways. The community itself had rediscovered a local hero, because that's what he was, a local legend in a way, because of all his stories he told the people as well. And on the other hand, tourists maybe discover that there's something strange going on, or has been going on Isla.